Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about Trees of Peace. Trees of Peace is an American-Rwandan drama that tells the story of 4 women in a village in Rwanda who find themselves caught in the middle of the genocide against the Tutsi people and Hutu moderates. In order to stay safe, they are forced to hide in a storage room together and wait for the genocide to pass. As time passes in the room, atrocities begin to escalate around them, which threatens to damage their resolve. But despite their differing beliefs and the odds for survival being stacked against them, the women bond with each other and form a sisterhood that will be the key in helping them live through the horrors of the genocide. This was a harrowing and emotionally moving experience from beginning to end, so much so that I'm still in shock with what I saw. It presents a terrifying account on the evil events that took place during the genocide, while also presenting a message about faith and perseverance through its characters that become stronger over time. Although there isn't a main character per se, I'll start with Nick, who owns the house where the women hide in. She's pregnant when the genocide starts, so right away the stakes for her character are sky high, as both her and her unborn child's lives are at risk. This makes it easy to become invested in her safety, and it also helps that she has a tragic backstory to generate sympathy with, in the form of her miscarriages that she had suffered in the past. Though she is affected by her loss, she also ends up being hardened by her experience, so she's sort of a voice of reason to help rally the group when things get heated. A lot of this drama comes from Mutesi, a Tutsi woman and rape victim who is angry toward those who wronged her in the past. Because of her grudge, she tends to lash out at the other women in the storage space, which makes an already tense situation even more so. I'll admit that I wasn't a big fan of her character at first, but as more details behind her backstory are revealed, I came to understand her point of view better, and the way she starts to let go of her anger over the course of the story helped make her more endearing. The third woman, Jeanette, is a nun who finds herself experiencing a crisis of faith the longer the genocide continues. It was interesting to see how she offered support to the other women in the beginning, only for her to start leaning on them more as she becomes more affected by the group's circumstances. This also makes way for some intriguing conflict, as she claims to not be judgmental of others before God, only for her to start doing so as others reveal sins from their past lives. This could be labeled as hypocritical, but as with the other girl, she suffers from a trauma that makes it understandable why she is the way she is, so I ultimately felt sorry for her. The last character, Peyton, is probably the most interesting one of the bunch, due to the fact that she's a white woman from America and not a native of Rwanda like the others. She's a teacher who comes to Rwanda to educate the youth of the country, only to end up being caught in the middle of the slaughter of them, and it was heartbreaking to see her be affected by this. While I find it a bit odd and even questionable as far as inserting a white American into an African narrative goes, she's still a great character, mostly due to how she upholds the group's morale by teaching them to read and write. And like with others, her tragic backstory and true reason for coming to Rwanda makes her even more sympathetic and likable. I like that the women's beliefs and personalities are so different from each other. Being caught in the middle of such a horrifying event would put anyone on edge to begin with, so the fact that the women's differences can make them uneasy and put them at odds with each other makes the story even more compelling, as it adds more realism to the plot. But even though their beliefs vary, there's also common ground that exists between the 4 of them, in that they all share past trauma that they're trying to move on from. As a result, the women, who start off as complete strangers, end up becoming family, with warts and all, and the way their bond develops organically in the face of an unimaginable crisis was an incredible experience. What surprised me the most about this movie was how intense it was. There are times when it borders on being a psychological thriller, as the constant threat of death looms around the women every second. Every little noise that happened in and outside the house made my heart jump and lungs gasp, and when a movie makes me react like this, that's when I know it has me hooked. And in this regard, I don't think the suspense would have worked as well as it did if it weren't for its portrayal of the genocide. The terrible things that were inflicted upon people in that time are showcased in brutal detail, ranging from the raping of innocent women to the senselessly violent deaths that people face. What makes the genocide truly horrifying, though, isn't what the audience sees, but what they don't see. Gunshots, incessant screaming, and people begging for their lives paint a mental picture in one's mind as to what kind of madness is happening outside of the house, which made me more worried for the women's safety as the movie progressed. While the violence isn't shown on screen save for one rape scene, the movie makes no apologies in presenting who was affected by it, with one scene involving children near the end of the movie that made my heart freeze. While I applaud the movie's dedication to portraying the genocide, I also have to stress that it can be very hard to watch at times. Even when there's no violence taking place, the atmosphere alone is enough to make one unsettled when watching it. Because the majority of this movie takes place in one tiny room, there's a feeling of claustrophobia that forms and instills a gradual panic in the viewer, which, coupled with the hell raging outside of the house, makes the story even more nerve-wracking. And if that wasn't enough, the lack of food and an next pregnancy adds a time limit to their ordeal. As time passes, the women lose their energy while waiting for supplies from an ex-husband, Francois, and as the next belly gets bigger, I found myself wondering if they would truly make it through. The tension throughout this movie comes as close to being perfect as a movie can get. That doesn't mean that the women are constantly surrounded by doom and gloom though. They pass the time with activities such as writing and drawing on the walls, telling jokes, and even playing simple games. Not only do these things help break the tension when necessary, but they also serve to emphasize the value of the character's humanity. Occasionally, the movie will also use dream sequences to take a look at the inner thoughts of the women as they sleep. This adds further detail to their backgrounds, as well as symbolizing the constant pressure they are forced to endure, as even in their dreams they are not safe from the traumas they carry. The dark, grim subject matter is further enhanced by a hauntingly beautiful soundtrack, making good use of string instruments to highlight the atrocious tragedy taking place, while also hinting at hope for the future, which ties into the central theme of faith. All of the characters exemplify this theme, and Nick wants her son to be better than the genocidaires, Jeanette hopes and prays that God will solve everything, and Mutesi eventually believes that her life will improve once she lets go of her anger. I found Peyton to be the most notable example for this theme. On top of wanting to seek atonement from her family, she has a storybook called Seeds of Love, Trees of Peace, which she reads to the group before using it to teach them how to read and write. This gesture of kindness demonstrates the value that education has in others, not just with learning skills, but also in bringing people together. This seemingly small action sees the women improve their outlook on life over time and hope for a future of peace. And as someone who works in education, I was deeply moved by how this topic was used to combat hatred. The only complaint I can think of as far as this movie is concerned is that the characters' physical strengths tend to vary as events proceed, usually when it's convenient for the story and they try to plot an escape plan. But honestly, given their situation, one could just chalk it up to being a rush of adrenaline and easily move past it. Overall, Trees of Peace is a phenomenal drama, exploring the individual impact that the Rwandan genocide had on its population in unflinching fashion. If you like dramas, you want to watch one that has a tense atmosphere of dread behind it, and you don't mind dark subject matter, you absolutely have to check this one out. It is must-see material. Its multi-layered characters, tense atmosphere, thematic storytelling, and grim aesthetics contribute to making a stunning work of art that promotes a message of peace and acceptance. I'm happy movies like these exist to plant seeds of love to welcome the future, and also to ensure that the past is never forgotten. What did you think about this movie? Did you think the 4 women in the genocide were portrayed faithfully, or were there some elements behind them that you think could have been improved? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of Trees of Peace. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Spanish crime thriller, Centauro. Bye bye!